All right, folks, I'm here with Geoffrey Heinzel of Ascendo, master of Infrasonic bass. I guess do you guys consider yourselves almost to be the originators of the modern infrasonic attack?
Well, I'm not aware of anybody else in the residential space, at least, right? I mean, there is, of course, special designs for, let's say, theme parks and whatnot that have been done, but residential has a very different, I think, need for speed and extension than theme parks, because theme parks are in open space and residential is in a closed room, right? And so we're talking about movies, music, very, very tight, very good articulation, even in the very low frequency. So it's a very different design approach, actually. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm not aware of anybody else doing infrasonic bass in the residential before we did.
Right. And you guys, it seems almost like you came out of nowhere, but Ascendo did not come out of nowhere. You've been around a while, right, but things have kind of changed a little bit with the introduction of kind of, I guess you could say, a home theater focused arm of the company?
That's correct. Yeah. Ascendo is, of course, a traditional two-channel company, and we have been selling our first high-end loudspeakers since 1999, so we're around for 25 years. In 2010, I came... 7, I joined the company. 10, I had the impression that I need to do something different. We need to come up with a different concept for the company, and so I started to look at more home theater, because home theater was always like a hobby of mine. I just posted on Facebook some pictures from. That was mid-90s.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah. So where maybe a lot of people don't really know my history, but I have been in car audio and also in PA. I built my own PA systems and I did rent those out in Zurich. And so anyway, I have a lot of history with bass, with big bass. We built these big vans already in the 1990s, sorry, with 12 or 16, 15-inch subwoofers and stuff, the big car audio days, which people, by the way, do today still.
For sure,
but, yeah. So I understand all these subwoofer designs from all different kind of categories of industries, and so through that knowledge, I came back then to home theater and said we can apply all that knowledge, and do basically a high-performance home theater with much better bass performance, because until then, like a 12 or 15-inch subwoofer was considered big, right?
Sure.
And when you reproduce bass in a space, you need to, below the lowest room resonance, you need to pressurize the room, right? That's how you achieve low bass reproduction. And so we were the first ones really, to the best of my knowledge, researching that in 2013-14, and then we came out with the first speakers and subwoofers, and I already in 14 we already did double bass arrays.
Okay.
Because we had active subwoofers with AVB, audio video bridging technology. So we made a subwoofer cluster in the front, in the back, and basically time delayed and reversed that. So this is nothing new to us. All these bass management things and whatnot. And so we gained a lot of competence throughout the years, and of course here we are today doing
just amazing things. And
yes.
I think one of the key things about a bass is that it's not something that you can fake.
Right.
There's a lot of things in audio that you can kind of skirt around and still get decent performance, but when you hear bad bass, you know it. Well, and you guys have really opened up this world of incredible performance way down below the threshold of human hearing.
True. As you rightfully stated, bass is, I think, the crown prince of audio reproduction. It's like the pinnacle of, if you really understand bass, you understand the rest. The rest is kind of easy. Maybe a lot of people will disagree, but if you get the bass right, everything falls into place, even the mid-range reproduction, everything, yeah? And bass is about speed and extension. And to get both correct is the most difficult part, really, because, I mean, for extension, you need to move a lot of air. But to move a lot of air, usually you lose speed. So to get the speed, even at the lowest frequencies, you need a speaker that has a very, very low Q. I don't want to become too technical here now, but in the end of the day, what it means, you need a lot of torque, you need a lot of RPM, both together, right? Mm-hmm. And to do that, I mean, that finding that balance is really, really difficult, right? So.
Well, you found it. Well, easy to say with some subwoofer designs that are eye-catching also, I think.
Correct. We always improve upon it. I mean, we found the best solution for us today, but this is not, you know, for me, I'm not stopping here. I mean, I'm still trying to improve upon that, which is really, really hard, to be honest. But in the end of the day, we always continue in our company to try to find the holy grail of not only bass reproduction, but also mid and high frequency reproduction. Here we want to talk, of course, about infrasonics, which we do.
Yep.
And of course, we are looking always down. So
that's right. Yeah, this beautiful. I mean, I really enjoyed the pictures when they first came out. Looking at it, it's just, it looks so different. But just touching and feeling it, I was not expecting like this front part of the driver to be rigid as it is.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the 28, by the way, which was announced about 2 weeks ago, or about
2 weeks ago.
Within the last week or so.
We like and we sell a lot of our 32-inch subwoofers, but you know, I mean, I'm not saying the competition is catching up, but I mean, there is people copying us basically with cheap solutions from China, which, yeah, you can do, you can source that kind of stuff, but they don't really understand how to do that, not even with a 32. But it looks, our product looks similar to the other because there is one single frame in the market, one company produces in China, so they buy the same frame, they buy from vendors, maybe the same cone, maybe a different cone, I don't know. But the motor behind is really what makes the speaker, right? So what you see may look the same, but what is behind is really the big difference, because in the end of the day, you can put in a Bentley, a Volkswagen motor, or even a Dacia motor, you know?
Sure.
You don't know until you look under the hood, right?
Right. I was just going to say that same, analogy.
Right.
It does translate really well.
Right. So, and to really now differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack, I was envisioning this speaker concept already for a long time, and I've been speaking to people, you know, like Arnaud Labourie, the CEO of Trenov, about this for quite some time, because of course I know that they've been working on the waveforming for quite some time, right? And so we were involved very early on in a lot of different beta test projects and rooms where we tested waveforming. And so one of the biggest difficulties is to implement our infrasonic technology into waveforming, because right now, or until today, what we did is we then integrated through a crossover a 32 or 24 or even bigger 50 into the waveforming system, crossing these two woofers over, basically the front base array and the rear base array, and then somehow try to do a two-way subwoofer cluster, with infrasonic woofers and the base array of waveforming. Now, I said, let me think about that, and I then came up with the solution of having an infrasonic woofer that is a full range woofer, right? So having basically two woofers in one, but that is extremely difficult because you need to put so much more muscle behind to accelerate such a huge cone. And not only the cone, you need to accelerate the air mass which is loading to the cone, which complicates things further. And of course we needed to make it as compact as possible, because waveforming, or any base array for that matter, lives from the spacing of center to center woofer. And when you want to have full control over a waveform, up to 120 hertz, which is by definition the cutoff in LFE, right?
Right.
So you need a lambda fourth spacing. That means 80 centimeters, right? Which is a little bit less than 3 feet. Center to center cone.
Right.
So that means you need to have a lot of subwoofers if you want to have full control up to the full LFE frequency
Okay.
roll off. Makes sense, right?
Makes sense.
And so I had to come up, of course, with a woofer design that can not only do the extension down low to the single digits, which is difficult enough, but then the more difficult part is really to make that woofer also perform up to high frequencies, right? And since you're not having a brick wall filter at 120 hertz, you're still rolling off, let's say with fourth order, like 24 dB per octave. So you still hear very well 500 hertz, because like 48 dB down, you still hear where our human hearing is very, very sensitive to these higher frequencies, because our ears become more sensitive. So you still need to have a subwoofer that really plays well into the mid-range frequencies, and that's exactly what we did here. This woofer, make a long story short, plays up to 600 hertz absolutely linear. Okay.
And how low does it go?
And goes into the single digits. I mean, you can literally play 1 hertz with it, but the question is, when I'm asked, okay, how low does it go? Every subwoofer on this planet, and no matter what the manufacturer claims, rolls off, and the enclosure size determines the roll-off. So, I mean, we publish this kind of measurement because we do a full Klippel and we do a full CEA 2010B power, distortion, and of course frequency plot. You can see, and we offer honest data, because when somebody claims my subwoofer goes down to 18 hertz, 15 hertz, that's a big lie, because it doesn't do an F3 at 18 hertz natively. It only does it with an EQ. But when you now boost the bottom end, you reduce the maximum SPL of the high end.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So let's say a 15-inch woofer or 18-inch woofer for that matter goes down to 15 hertz. Yes, of course, each tweeter, each smartphone goes down to 1 hertz. That's not the issue, but does it have authority? Does it have high output at that frequency? No, it doesn't. Yeah, not even an 18-inch woofer has high output at 15 hertz. Cannot.
Right. Which you need to experience.
You need to experience it, exactly.
Yep.
So an 18-inch woofer, even if it has a lot of excursion, most likely has in the range of about 95 dB maximum SPL at full power, by the way, right? So if you measure it in the free field, I'm not talking about in-room response. Of course, in-room response, every woofer has more because you have boundary gain, you have, room gain eventually, depending on the room size. But since we're doing mostly very, very big projects with big room volume, the room gain starts maybe only at 10 hertz versus small rooms, where you have a room gain starting maybe at 20 or 25 hertz already, right?
When with smaller drivers, is there a lot of distortion that begins to mix in
Absolutely.
with what's going on?
Every loudspeaker has distortion, and always the distortion rises in the lowest reproduction frequencies of this loudspeaker. And so when you measure a subwoofer in a lab, and that's again what we show you, the real honest measurement data, you see that the distortions rise. Yeah, the more power you put into a speaker, the more the distortion rises, especially in the bottom end. So when you determine in the end of the day what is acceptable to you, you accept 20% distortion, 10%, 5%, and that again determines the maximum output of what you have or what you get.
If the human ear can't hear below 20 hertz,
right?
What happens with distortion in that range? Does it present itself in a different way?
No. Distortion, what is distortion? It's a non-linearity. It's not following faithfully the original signal. That's
right.
distortion.
Right.
Okay? So you get anomalies, you know. I mean, distortion is not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a thing you hear.
Sure.
You hear third harmonic, sixth harmonic, you know. You don't hear second harmonic.
So the
distortion.
sensation that you're getting in the room below that threshold
Yeah.
will be different.
Of course.
Because of the distortion introducing anomalies.
Right. But what is a third harmonic distortion? It's basically when the original frequency is 100 hertz, 300 hertz is the third harmonic.
Right.
So,
Right.
for example, if you have a 20 hertz original signal and the third harmonic of 20 hertz is 60 hertz, do you hear 60 hertz? Yes, of course you do.
Yeah.
You know, and
Sure.
even in the infrasonics, you know, for example, I mean, when you have a signal of 10 hertz, yeah, what is the sixth harmonic? It's 60 hertz. What is the third harmonic? It's 30 hertz.
Right.
So you hear that, of course you hear
Yeah,
that.
of course you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this is really what we're designing. I mean, this has a distortion, an incredible low for a woofer, below 0.1%.
Wow.
This is really incredible, and this is what you hear in our room here. When you hear that, it's so crisp and clear, and it's not only it's the low distortion, but it's also the speed. You know, you're not having any lag. You're not having any additional boom or resonating sounds, you know, which you normally get even from very high-end subwoofers. Yeah, because the Q of the woofer determines, you know, in the end of the way, the speed. Because the bigger the motor structure, the more force you can put into it in comparison to the mass, you know, the more speed you get. Right, the more acceleration you get. It's the same like with a car. When a car is like 6,000 pounds or 3,000 pounds with the same motor, it accelerates a lot better, right? It's the same thing here.
And this, for those of you out there, I know this can be a little confusing, but the translation to me, so I've had not experience with this in my home, but the 32.
Correct.
It's so clean. Once you hear bass that isn't muddied up,
Correct.
with that distortion,
Right.
it's really amazing how the sound field just seems to open up all the way up through mid and up into the high frequencies. Very notable, so much so that even my younger daughters have noticed. They're like, wow, this is amazing. And it really is something that you have to experience to understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on. You know, we're not working on making a woofer cheaper or smaller, for that matter, or whatever. I mean, we're working on offering the best quality there is on this planet. Yeah, that's what I'm working on, and we want to offer that. And of course, eventually, this technology will maybe trickle down to the less expensive models. You know, everybody's talking about price. Yes, it's not a cheap woofer, absolutely not. But a Bugatti or you know, higher end cars, they're not cheap either. So we're not building for the mass.
This is around 37?
No, it's 30K
30K.
right now. Yes,
Yeah.
it's 30K.
Well, let's talk briefly about some of the physical characteristics of this, because this is a lot different than the other infrasonic subs that you have in terms of cabinet depth.
Yeah, we could build this only 8 inches deep.
Only 8 inches.
Right now, this is 12 inches.
Well, which is a little less than half the size of the 32.
Correct.
So you're saving a ton of space.
It has the same cone area, identical to a 32, right? But you save a lot of space. Real estate, even in the most high-end homes, is a premium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have, in a high-end home theater, normally you have a lot of speakers you need to be able to place. Plus, you need to place also acoustic treatment, right? So everybody's fighting for the same real estate in a home theater, in a high-end home theater. And so we had to do something on top of what I mentioned before. You know, let's say when you have waveforming or art system or whatever, everybody wants that real estate somewhere, some very specific space, you know, maybe in the front wall, in the back wall, whatever, or in the side walls. And so we had to come up with an idea to offer a better use of this real estate, right? And this is exactly what we did here. So, of course, a subwoofer operates better if the enclosure is bigger. This one too. I mean, no doubt about that, because there is what we call, or what is known to the speaker designer, Hoffmans Iron Law. Yeah. So when you have a bigger enclosure, the woofer becomes more efficient. Yeah. So, but we sacrifice that in this case, and we just add more power to it. You know, I mean, this subwoofer has been tested with the biggest amplifiers that are available on this planet, with 36 kilowatts, and we didn't measure a single decibel, not 1 decibel of compression ratio.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the Klippel system which we're using for measuring this, actually different Klippel systems. Klippel were running out of capability to measure more voltage swing than what we have measured here. So, I mean, even if we had a bigger amplifier, we could not measure it because there is no measurement system on this planet. So we run into limitations. We literally go to the biggest extremes nobody ever did before. Bigger than any, I mean, the biggest PA systems cannot handle as much power as this one does.
that is just so, I love it. Just as a fan of home theater,
Yeah.
and technology.
Yep.
It's just so exciting to have this.
It is.
Kind of,
nobody ever did what we did in terms of power handling, extension, SPL. I mean, this has a sensitivity of 95 decibel, 1 watt, 1 meter.
wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. You
Yeah.
know, for a speaker like that. Plus, it extends to 600 hertz. You know, it's yeah. Anyway. Very, very
really
unique.
Now, is there a chance that this driver could find its way into a larger enclosure down the road with Ascendo?
Yeah, we're definitely planning. I mean, I have a lot more things to research now when this driver is available and being produced with enclosure technologies. I have a few enclosure technologies in mind where I can even shrink it further and hopefully not shrink the performance of it. But to answer your question, yes, we will offer this in different shapes and sizes. Because in the end of the day, when I put this driver in a maybe 30-40% bigger enclosure, I gain 3 dB in the very bottom end, right? And that's substantial because 3 dB is double the power. Right now I need to just double the power into it to get the same. But if I put it in a bigger enclosure, I mean, I can raise the bottom end. If I make this enclosure maybe 2.5-3 times the size, I can gain almost 6 dB down there, you know, which is incredible.
Really looking forward to see
Yep.
what's going to come of that. This is really exciting. I see an event that both you and I need to attend is
Yes.
getting ready to start. But Geoffrey, thank you so much.
Josh.
Thanks for bringing all this wonderful stuff to the world for us to enjoy. And I can't wait to get in there and experience it right now. I'll throw in some shots of what the inside of the room looks like. But thanks so much. Good luck with the show. And folks out there, like, share, subscribe, whatever you need to do with this video, and also come hang out with us in the home theater forum at avnirvana.com.